coming up on this episode of the Women's Leadership Mindset Series podcast?
Well, the first experience that I had when I was told, it really is stage 3, was I looked at my doctor and I said, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that. And that is something that, many executives say, no, I'm busy. I don't have time. I don't have time for that. And then the next thought that crosses many people's minds is, I cannot tell anyone, because they're going to think I can't run my business. I can't run my department. I can't do whatever it is. And so they, it's not necessarily denial, but they are thinking I can't tell anyone. And the nice thing is the vast majority of time people have cancer and you never really know, or they actually have, I hate to say an easy go, but something that isn't, as catastrophic. And so many times people really don't know. But when you're going to be facing something where physically you're going to look different, right? Whether it's, loss of hair from chemotherapy, the drugs do really fun things to you. Obviously you might be having surgery, things like that. So people are going to know what's going on. And, but we're still saying, no, I don't want to tell anybody. Well, the problem is people know. They can see. They know what's going on. And so you want to be in control of that narrative. You don't want it to be the, what's going on with them? They're looking really rough. You want to be the person saying, I'm going through this. And obviously whatever level of information you want to provide. Some people don't say very much. Some people, are very, very open and talking about what's going on. But people just want reassured that things are going to be okay.
Welcome, leaders, to the Women's Leadership Mindset Series presented by TK Page Enterprises. My name is Teresa Page, and I am your host and looking forward to spending these next few moments with all of you. We have a lot of work to get done on today, but first, allow me to invite you to connect with me by subscribing to my website and to connect and follow me on LinkedIn, YouTube, and other social media platforms. And always feel free to contact me directly via email or by booking an appointment. So what is our goal? Well, as an author, speaker, coach, and mentor, my mission is to help professional women renew their leadership mindset with fresh fire and purpose through diverse mediums of leadership empowerment solutions and the My Journey to Wholeness book series. However, the Women's Leadership Mindset series is a new initiative intended to spotlight powerful women leaders and how they serve the world through their professions and purpose. So with a goal to help women realize their unfulfilled dreams and re-energize the leaders they always were, this platform is designed to enhance, empower, educate, equalize, and even emancipate as our featured guests share their entrepreneurial stories, provide viable resources, and guidance in a caring, professional, and impactful manner. So, let's get down to business. Well, all right. In today's video, it is my pleasure to welcome to my virtual stage Deb Krier, founder of tryingnottodie.LIVE and YourCancerCoach.LIVE of Mableton, Georgia. Our guest is someone every leader's hope they never need, but will be incredibly grateful to know if they do. Deb is a strategic advisor for executives facing cancer, a seasoned entrepreneur, and the founder of tryingnottodie.LIVE and YourCancerCoach.LIVE. After her own experience with a stage 4 diagnosis and multiple rounds of cancer, she now works with business leaders and senior leaders to help them navigate the intersection of health and leadership without losing control of either. With a background in communications and strategies spanning more than 2 decades and training as a certified integrative cancer coach, Deb brings a unique blend of real-world experience, practical strategy, and yes, just the right amount of humor to conversations that are often anything but easy. Because when life changes suddenly, leadership doesn't just pause. And Deb helps people figure out how to keep going. So to contact Deb, you may reach her on her website at www.tryingnottodie.LIVE and www.YourCancerWarrior.com. You may also connect with her via email at deb@debkrier.com. You may also connect with her on social media via LinkedIn at Deborah Krier and on Facebook at Deb.Krier. So we'll bring back all of this information along with Deb's free complimentary gift before we go. But first, I want to say welcome, Deb. How are you?
Oh, Teresa, I am hunky-dory. I never say fine. No. I am doing spectacular, and I am just so honored to be a guest on your program.
Absolutely, and I'm glad about it. I'm hunky-dory as well about this experience that we're getting ready to have. I am just so excited. Before we get into our conversation, I first need to give a big shout out and big ups to Noemi Bears, which is the co-founder of Podcast Connections of Cyprus, Europe. She is responsible for making this connection in between the two of us, and I am so grateful because when we had our one-on-one, I was just so inspired by the work that you're doing and knew that this was a conversation that we had to have. So I want to thank you so much for this connection, and I'm looking forward to going ahead and getting into this conversation. So let's get down to business. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself beyond the bio?
Well, again, thank you so much. And Noemi rocks. We love Noemi. And so my journey began almost 11 years ago, where I went and had my annual physical. There was a problem with the mammogram, so I had to repeat it. I was diagnosed with stage 0 breast cancer, which meant, don't worry about it. Just kind of watch it. It was what was considered pre-cancer. So we did. We just kind of watched things. I didn't even get an oncologist. My doctor, my surgeon, finally said, you know what, let's pull some lymph nodes. And this was after several months of not really doing too much. And 8 of 12 lymph nodes were positive for cancer. So that meant that not only was it not stage 0, it had spread. And so at that point, it was considered stage 3 cancer. So I did get an oncologist, and I decided to go with the traditional route of treatment. I tell people you absolutely positively have to pick what you think is going to work for you. And so I was going to do chemo, I was going to do surgery, and then I was going to do radiation. And so did chemo. My first round, I got catastrophic complications that are very rare because I am a special person, and ended up in the hospital for about 7 weeks. During that time, they actually changed the diagnosis to stage 4. So my diagnosis is stage 4 triple positive metastatic breast cancer. Obviously, I got out of the hospital, and I had a double mastectomy, got a complication from that the surgeon had never seen. They all just shake their heads, right, when they see me. And, went along just fine with that. I worked a good portion of this time, because that gave me something to think about. I loved my clients, and I wanted to keep working with them. I had radiation, had no problem with radiation, which was actually kind of strange considering I'm this redheaded, freckly kid. But, no problem with that. Several years after that, I did develop what they call basal cell carcinoma. And to me, that always sounds really bad. It's your basic garden variety skin cancer. And they were surprised that I was as old as I was before I had an issue, because not only am I red-haired and freckly, I grew up at an elevation of over 8,000 feet in Colorado, and that was long before they knew what sunscreen was. But now I get to go to that doctor every 6 months. And then it's been about 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and it was a totally new cancer. It was not a spread of the breast cancer. So I've had 3 different cancer diagnoses in about 11 years.
Well, Deb, thank you so much for trusting us with that information. That is definitely a journey that you've had over this past decade or so. How are you feeling today with all of the things that you're experiencing? How are you feeling on today?
I'm feeling really good. I had treatment this morning. I go in every 21 days. It's really a pretty fast, pretty quick treatment. But I will have it for as long as my body thinks that it's working. And it will slow me down for a couple of days, but then off I go again. I think one of the things that I have learned along the way is when you need to rest, rest. When you need to get up and go, then get up and go. I've had people like, you just had treatment and you're doing whatever. I'm like, well, yeah. But we need to pay more attention to our bodies and not try and make them do what we think they should, but let our bodies tell us what we need to be doing. But yeah, I'm just doing, all things considered, really well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things that you mentioned a little earlier that I don't think that I've ever heard before, because my personal family has been touched by cancer before. My father passed away of cancer maybe about 16 years ago this year. And so some of the things, it's something that's very difficult that a family has to face and all of that. Looking back to when you had stage 0 cancer, and I'm not trying to put you in a position of being a medical doctor or anything like that, but looking back, even at stage 0, do you think you would have done anything different? Knowing what you know now, would you do things differently when you were still in that precancerous space?
That's a great question, because I have wondered that. I did not have a lump, a bump, or anything like you typically associate with breast cancer. And so it wasn't that there was a visible thing. The computer saw, and this was, way before AI was doing all of this. The computer saw it and said, hey, there's a problem. I don't think I would have done anything different. I don't think I would have changed my treatment or anything like that, even knowing how seriously ill I got. I did have a second opinion from a different oncologist. She said the exact same thing. This is what I would have done. And there are some times where I think, wow, what if I had made a different choice? And one of the things, of course, we don't know. We don't have that crystal ball. And I figure it could have been better, or it could have been a lot worse. And so I think I chose what I was supposed to choose.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that. And I do have another question, Deb. And if it's too sensitive, let me know.
Oh, sure.
Just let me absolutely know. Because one of the things that has inspired me so much based on our previous conversations is what you have been able to create as a result of your personal life experience. Again, I want to ask this as sensitively as I possibly can. And again, if it is too sensitive, let me know. But why do you think that these experiences has chosen you specifically? The reason why I ask that question is that oftentimes I believe that some of the challenges that we may go through life, that even though it is happening to us personally, I do believe that is to build our resume so that we're able to help others and to create a space, whether it's a new business or it's a new service or something, to be able to support others who might be just stepping into their challenge. So I do believe it probably positions us as a forerunner to do something amazing on the other side after we go through our own personal, maybe private hell or our own personal development. So why do you think that this particular cancer experience may have chosen you, especially for the work that you're doing today?
Well, first, there's no question you can ask that I won't answer. I believe in being very open about my journey because I do think that it helps others. It's funny, it was my business coach who suggested multiple times, hey, you need to help others. And I'd go, And I would literally tell her, but I don't want to be cancer girl, right? I didn't want to have that as the only thing I did, because to me it's just part of who I am. But she kept saying, you didn't go through this without using it to help others. And I have always been that type of person that raises my hands, maybe too often, and has always helped people. I mean, that was just how I was raised, was that you help others. Way back, long ago, I worked for an oncologist and I worked for the American Cancer Society. So I know just enough to be dangerous about all of this, right? But my whole life really has been, how can I help others? And if I can help somebody through this, then I'm going to, and even if it's just little things, like getting somebody, in the treatment room, I'm getting up to get water. Can I get you water? Things like that. It's just, to me, it's kind of what I was put here to do.
Absolutely. And so let's get into the work that you do. So you are a certified integrative cancer coach, which is something that is very specifically niched, where you work along with leaders who may end up with cancer, who might be facing cancer, and how to still be able to navigate in their business without, as we mentioned earlier in your bio, without losing control. So tell us a little bit about this work as an integrative cancer coach, and tell us about the amazing work that you're doing with Trying Not to Die.LIVE, as well as your Live and YourCancerCoach.LIVE. Tell us about all of this work, what brought you to it, and tell us how people can find you and to start working with you in this space.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. It was one of those things that, it had been percolating, I guess, in my brain. And I was, with my husband, we were driving across Texas. We'd been out there for a football game, of all things, right? And so it's a long drive. It's a long drive all across Texas, let alone coming back to Atlanta. And so I had a lot of time to think. And I thought, what about being a cancer coach? Like I said, my business coach kept saying, you should think about this, you should think about this. And so I Googled it and found virtually nothing. And I didn't know if that meant that either there was no need for it, no demand, right? Or it was new. So then when I started researching the programs, I found that there were some that were very detailed. In fact, many of the ones that I found, and I really didn't find a lot, but they were part of, say, a psychology degree. Well, I didn't want to do that. I already have 2 advanced degrees. I don't want another one. And then I found the ones that, and I've done some of these for other things, the $30, $40 type of things that's, you spend a couple hours and you get certified. And I've done some of those. But the one that I found that I took is a very detailed program. It was 12 hours and, a lot of, or not 12 hours, 12 weeks. So a lot longer, right? 12 weeks worth of training, a lot of interaction with other students, even though it was online. And I just felt it better prepared me for what I wanted to do. Now, in my real life, where I get, where my business, I'm a marketing person. And so I always tell people, you have to find your niche. We can't just market to everybody. And so I thought, okay, I'm a business owner. I'm an executive with cancer. Those are my people. I'm going to speak that language. And I've been an executive in large companies and things like that too. So I understand what they're going through when they're told, hey, you've got cancer. And so that was what I decided to do and to launch. Now, tryingnottodie.LIVE is for anyone who is on a cancer journey. I welcome anyone to it. It's an initiative. I don't think I'll ever make it a nonprofit. I mean, I see there's a lot that fill that role very well, but it is maybe just a place for support. And it's not just for people who have cancer. It's for people who support those who have cancer. One of the biggest questions I get is, my friend, my coworker, my spouse has cancer, and I don't know what to do. And I do not in any way provide medical advice. Very careful to be, because people need to make their own decisions about things like that. But it is kind of a support place. I try and keep it as light and as funny, if possible, as we can, right? Because we all know humor's good for us. And it really is good for us. There are studies that have shown that laughing helps us heal. I like to keep things lighthearted, but also very supportive. We launched the cancer coaching, the strategic advisor. It's been a little over a year ago, and it just, again, it's my way to be able to give back.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the work that you do. And yeah, I mean, I just really find this to be such an incredible niche for you. It's maybe not the sexiest, but it has so much benefit to tell people that you can still live, that you don't have to just shrink and move on. Can you tell us as what are some of the stages with some of the leaders that you've worked with? Definitely not divulging anything personal, but what are some of the stages that leaders grapple with once they learn that they may have this illness? What are some of the stages that they go through as they navigate this process, both with this illness and still being able to still feel powerful and authoritative in their roles as the leaders for their organization? What does that actually look like as far as maybe understanding the diagnosis, juggling maybe some of the fears, and then coming to a resolve that I can do this and I can still be prosperous in my business?
Right.
Can you kind of take us behind the curtain and maybe share some of the experiences that you've had?
Well, the first experience that I had when I was told, it really is stage 3, was I looked at my doctor and I said, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that. And that is something that, many executives say, no, I'm busy. I don't have time. I don't have time for that. And then the next thought that crosses many people's minds is, I cannot tell anyone, because they're going to think I can't run my business. I can't run my department. I can't do whatever it is. And so it's not necessarily denial, but they are thinking I can't tell anyone. And the nice thing is the vast majority of time people have cancer and you never really know, or they actually have, I hate to say an easy go, but something that isn't, as catastrophic. And so many times people really don't know. But when you're going to be facing something where physically you're going to look different, right? Whether it's, loss of hair from chemotherapy, the drugs do really fun things to you. Obviously, you might be having surgery, things like that. So people are going to know what's going on. But we're still saying, no, I don't want to tell anybody. Well, the problem is people know. They can see. They know what's going on. And so you want to be in control of that narrative. You don't want it to be the, what's going on with them? They're looking really rough. You want to be the person saying, I'm going through this. And obviously whatever level of information you want to provide. Some people don't say very much. Some people, are very, very open and talking about what's going on. But people just want reassured that things are going to be okay. And so that's kind of one of the things. And I think one of the other things is, when we're a business owner, when we're an executive, we like to be in charge and we like to be in control. And many times when you are, facing a serious illness, whether it's cancer or something else, you are not in control. Or you feel that things are spiraling out of control. Now, one of the things I do tell people is you really are the boss. You get to decide what happens, what treatment you're doing, whatever it is. You are the person who decides that. But we don't feel like we're in control. Like I said, I still go in for treatment every 21 days. That's just annoying that I have to work my schedule around that and have had for 10 years. And so we want that control back. Because we are, we're used to doing that. We're used to being the boss. We're used to being in charge. And so I think it's a lot of things. There's also a lot of fear, right? There's the fear of what the heck is going to happen. Am I going to die? I think so many times when we're told, hey, you've got cancer, that is the first thought. I'm going to die. Most people don't, but we hear about the people who do. And usually we've experienced it, right? Whether it's a parent, whether it's, my grandmother had cancer, all of those various things. And so that is our first thought. And then we think, how is this going to change our lives? What is going to happen? And I tell people it's very much like grief. You go through all of those stages, the angry, the denial, the bartering, whether you're, bartering with your doctor, bartering with God, whoever you're bartering with, all of those various things. And they can keep coming back, years later. We talk about this lovely little thing called scan-anxiety, right? You've gone in for a test. Maybe it was routine, maybe it was, there might be something there. But until you know those results, you're just, you're either going, oh, it's going to be perfect, or the next minute it's going to be horrible and awful. And usually it takes several days to get those results. And so that's kind of a rough time. And so this is something that, even if you've had a pretty easy diagnosis, you still have that thought of, what if it comes back? And that is kind of hard to I tell people it's the elephant in the room. I had somebody ask me one time, where did I want to be in 10 years? And they meant from a business perspective, right? And I said, alive. And
Right.
it kind of startled them. And I said, and they actually knew my history. And I said, really, that is it. Sometimes just getting through the day, I'm a happy camper. Some people, they'll say, how you doing today? And I'll say, well, I'm not looking up at 6 feet of dirt, so I'm doing pretty good. But, we're used to being in charge, and it's hard to not be in charge.
So as the integrative cancer coach, what are your services? Tell us more about your services and how you support these leaders to kind of get through all of these different stages of navigating through this experience. Tell us a little bit more about, well, first and foremost, because you are so specially niched, how do leaders find you? And once they find you, what does it look like to then come in and work with Coach Deb?
Right. Usually it's referrals. It's somebody either knows me and hears someone say, hey, I'm going through this, or, like I do a lot of social posting so people can see it there. But yeah, it is a very small market, obviously. But what I do is remote, with good old Zoom, right? We love the fact that we can be anywhere. And so what I'm doing is I'm helping them get through this with their business and their professional life intact. I am, like I said, I'm not the medical person. I don't want to really know those details unless it's, going to affect us. Like, hey, I've got to cancel my next conference call with you because things like that. That's not what I'm there for. And I am never going to give medical advice. Now I might, one of the things that I do is I remind people, pay attention to how you're eating, pay attention to your sleep, your exercise, all of those things. And I do tell people, make sure that you are informing your medical team, whoever they are, what you're going through. We all think, okay, chemotherapy makes us sick. That's just kind of the, right? Doesn't have to. I mean, in some cases it is, but they can adjust the medicines. And so I remind people, make sure that you're telling your care team. And, we now have so many other options. It's like I said, I did chemo, surgery, radiation. Well, there are people who choose to not do that or do that combined with. And so I'm not going to talk to people about their treatment plan. I am going to work with them to make sure, as we've talked about, that their business survives this. Now, they might decide they don't want to, priorities are going to change and they don't want to do it. Well, then we can work through that too. But, it's things that as a business owner or an executive, we should have in place anyway, like a business continuity plan. Now, those are very detailed, and I don't get into a lot of that, but it is things like, where's your bank? What are the job things that you do that you might need to have somebody else do? We've hired smart, knowledgeable people. So delegating and empowering them is a good thing. Yes. And of course, one of the things that people think is, well, but what if they decide they don't need me? That might happen. You never know. But more importantly, isn't it better that you've empowered those who work with you? And then maybe you can do something different. Maybe you've had a new product or service you've been thinking about, or, something like that. But yeah, you have good people working for you. Let them do it. Let them help. People want to help. And if they don't, well, then there's a different problem. It's how can you and your reputation, things like that, survive? Manage that communication. You always want to be who is in charge, of that communication. You get to decide, right? I mean, there are actually laws that, if you're in a larger company, that determine what can and cannot be said. Like, I could tell my HR person, this is what's going on. But then I could also tell that person, and you can't tell anybody, and they can't. And obviously there's disability laws, all sorts of things like that. And those are for the HR and the lawyers. But yeah, are we going to, is your company or your position in a company going to survive this? And, one of the things I say is, if you set this up right with things like a business continuity plan and delegating and empowering, you might actually be able to go on vacation and not be tied to your email and your phone.
Absolutely. And I love the way that you have created such a structure that this is not a place for you to come in here and to feel sorry for yourself, even though you are having to go through the reality of the experience, but you're not creating let me come in here and feel sorry for you, but that you're helping leaders to be able to put actual structures in place that could, in fact, extend the longevity of their life and the well-being of their life, because you've created that continuity. You are now starting to delegate, which can maybe release some of that stress.
Right.
Which less stress may be healing to the body as well as empowering. And so I really love that, because that's that transformational leadership where you're giving the team that you actually hired, like you mentioned, you've hired great people. Let them actually do the work, or let them help rise to the occasion into this experience. Hi there, leaders. Thank you so much for listening in to our conversation on today. I want to take a quick pause to share with you something very special. Through my company, Teresa K. Page, MBA, I am committed to deliver leadership empowerment events with valuable and practical content that will equip leaders in realizing their unfulfilled dreams and goals. That's why it is my joy to cordially invite you to the International Authors Expo. As a celebration of literature and creativity from around the world, this event is designed to connect published authors, aspiring authors, and book lovers in a virtual setting to explore books, attend masterclass workshops, participate in Q&A panels, shopping, and so much more. Now accepting applications, this new initiative is created for authors to showcase their literary work, talent, and expertise on a global stage. But this event is not just for authors. Guest tickets are now available for our family, friends, and colleagues looking to enhance their writing, speaking, and communication styles, or looking for their new favorite read, or perhaps they're a retailer looking for something unique to brighten up their retail shelves. So for complete event, author application, and guest ticket details for the upcoming event, visit teresakpage.squarespace.com /International Authors Expo. Or you may also follow me at Teresa K Page, MBA.eventbrite.com. Don't miss out on this fantastic opportunity to engage with the global literary community. I like the way that you have created such a structure within your coaching space. So I kind of want to back up. It's probably a backup question. I probably should have asked it already. But you mentioned earlier that I don't want to be cancer girl. Mm-hmm. But then look at what you've created by taking a part of your career expertise and your personal challenge, and you have created something that was totally brand new, where there wasn't a demand, or it wasn't created, or it was just something that was brand new, like you mentioned. But those of us who are out here and maybe existing entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, or people who might be facing something and they're not wanting to be the calendar man or woman for that particular challenge. How important is it to be able to lean into those challenges and to start thinking about how can I band together my career expertise along with my personal challenge, or either how I've overcome my personal challenge, and start to create something for a particular niche. Why is that so important, that if you have that unction to lean into that and to discover something that you may never have even imagined for your life? Why is it so important to lean into that?
Well, okay, I have to admit, I used AI to create Cancer Girl, right? She's there. She's got her hands on her hips. She's got the cape. I had to, I was like, okay, I just had to do that. But, I think some of it is, as we mature, we start, as we get old, right? We're thinking about, what have I done with my life? What do I want my legacy to be? I don't want my headstone to say, I wish I would have. And for me, one of the things that has happened is it made me pause, and it made me think, is this really what I want to do? And I am still running the same company that I started over 20 years ago. So, that's it. But some of the priorities with it have changed. There will be some people who will say, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm just not going to do it. I think what we see a lot of people think about is their personal life, their family, their friends. It's been kind of one of the weird things. Some of the people who I thought would be my biggest supporters, nope, couldn't do it for whatever reason. And I wasn't going to question them. I didn't want them to feel bad. I thought, well, guess that friendship was over. But other people who I didn't even think knew I existed have been some of my biggest supporters. And I think that's one of the things too, the whole lack of control thing. One of the hardest things for us to do is to ask for help. And I think it's really hard for women, right? I tell people it's the airplane rule. You have to put your mask on first before you can help anybody else. And so it's okay to ask for help. It doesn't mean that you're weak. Vulnerability is not a negative thing, and obviously this is hard for many people, and men and women. But, like I said, some of my greatest friendships now are the people who said, hey, can I help? And I said, yes. And I think that is one of the challenges that we have to get through, is it's okay to ask for help.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now, Deb, I am truly enjoying our conversation on today. And as we prepare to downshift, I still have a couple of questions up my sleeve that I want to ask. And you've already given us some of the behind the curtains experiences that you've had. But, anyone who is listening to our conversation can definitely tell that you have an effervescent personality about yourself, that you're really bubbly, and, you smile all the time. And I know we mentioned earlier that you do lead with humor, that laughter is so important. So I want you to maybe take us a little further behind the curtain. And I know this is not necessarily one of those moments that we want to do a tee hee hee, but what has been maybe probably the most humorous experience? I know this already been intense moments, but because you do lead with humor, um, what has been maybe the most humorous experience that you've had in this adventure as you have built this new niche, this new business? Maybe take us behind the scenes. Is there maybe one or two examples of probably the most humorous experience you've had in this work that you're doing?
Yeah, I think one of the things, all vanity is gone, right? And because everybody keeps wanting to look at various parts of your body, and my scars have scars, and all sorts of things. And yeah, I mean, you get up and people are like, trying to gather your gown, because you're flashing the world. I mentioned my dermatologist. I tell him I'm here for my strip and spin. And he's like, don't call it that. And I said, but that's what you do. You strip, you spin. And he's like, but don't call it that.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, and I've renamed myself.
Okay.
I only do this if I never do this with somebody new because I don't want them to freak out. But what is your name and date of birth? Well, my name is Anastasia Beaverhausen. I don't know where that came from. I'm just Anastasia Beaverhausen. And so in the treatment room, where I go every 21 days, they've decided it's princess. And so, you must do the princess wave and the hello. And I was doing that today, right? I'm leaving the infusion room, and so I'm doing the princess wave. And there was this lady there, and she's looking at me like I am crazy, right? She's like, and I could see things flashing past her, like, doesn't she know this is serious? This is, and I get it, right? It is very serious. A lot of people I do not see again, and it's not for a good reason. But I looked at her and I said, honey, I've been coming here a really long time, and these are my friends. But yes, we must do the princess wave. And hello. Sometime I'm going to have to go with white gloves on, right? And I need a little Queen Elizabeth princess purse.
Absolutely. and the tiara. And the tiara.
I know. A tiara. Yeah. Right. And I remember one time I was going in for surgery, and I've had a lot. I have had many, many surgeries. And I'm like I am now. I was jibber jabber. And I knew the surgeon were jibber jabber, and I heard one of the nurses tell another one, oh dear, she must be very nervous, because I was jibber jabber. And I said, no, honey, if I can make you all laugh, I figure my surgery is going to go better. Now I did have one doctor one time that I was jibber jabber, and that mask went on, and he put me to sleep faster than I was supposed to. He was tired of me. He was like, enough.
Absolutely. As we prepare to kind of shift down, I believe you started out in this journey with breast cancer, if I'm not mistaken. And how important is it, especially as women leaders, for us to really be able to pay attention to our bodies and to really make sure that we are pausing to take the time? For so many of us, we feel like we don't have the time, but to take that time to make sure that we're getting our annual breast exams, our mammograms, and different things like that. What would you say to women to making sure that we do stay on top of just seeing about ourselves, not just about our mammograms or our annual physicals? Why is it just so important for us, and especially for those who are running a business wherein it's not just one of those things that going into a 9-to-5 and clock out, but that I am actually running a business, especially for those of us as entrepreneurs that may not know when to stop. Why is it so important for us to be able to put that aside?
Well, I've been having annual exams since I was probably 16, 17 years old. I just have always thought that was very important. Obviously, the earlier you catch whatever it is, the better it is. The sooner you can catch any type of issues, the easier it is for them to treat, and things like that. But I tell people, pay attention to your body. We know what's right and what's wrong. And if your medical team is not paying attention to that or ignoring you, then go to somebody else. We've heard stories where people have said this was not right, and they were poo-pooed. Nope. We know our bodies. They don't know our bodies. And the thing to remember is, we can push and we can push and we can push, and then we really do collapse. So why not take some time? These people who say I get 3 hours of sleep a night. Ugh.
Right.
Yeah,
that's not sexy. That's not a flex.
It is just, and I say this just with big letters, right? Your business. It should not be your life. And I get that it's our baby, it's our legacy, it's all of those things. But if we're not around to see it, what good is it?
Absolutely. And I actually had to go and I'm telling the world my own business, but I actually had to go and do my own annual mammogram.
Those
just
are fun.
Literally early. Absolutely, a couple of days ago. When you're talking about there is just nothing sexy.
I know. Smush. I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore.
It's absolutely nothing sexy about it, when somebody else is moving your breast around, putting them in between plates. They're now they have this big 3D machine, so you're getting a whole global with this big machine. And then don't be a big breasted woman like me. So that's a wrap. It definitely takes away all of the dignity, but it is so important to make sure that we are doing that, as well as paying attention to other things that's going on in our bodies. Well, Ms. Deb, it has been such an honor to be able to spend some time with you. One of the things that I think that you found out about me, and I love asking this question to all of my special guests, is that I think you discovered about me during our one-on-one that I am really passionate about employing love as the ultimate success factor. To renew transformational leaders' mindset with fresh fire and purpose. And along with that, I believe that the effective power of love is that game changer that gives us an edge to be innovative in business, to be fully present for our teams and our stakeholders, knowledgeable in industry trends, benevolent in our community service, and above all, powerful in leadership.
Right.
So with this understanding, can you share with us what kind of leader would you say that you are, and how has love shaped you into the leader that you are?
I would hope that I'm a compassionate leader, that I have empathy and sympathy, because those are two different things. And this has changed. One of the things that I am, very conscious of is telling people, first, that you appreciate them and saying thank you, but saying I love you, right? I'm walking out of the doctor's office today saying, love you guys, love you all. And again, people were looking at me like I was crazy. But, the thing, you never know when it might be the last time you say that. So why not, say that you love them? And I really do. I love the fact that they take such good care of me, that they care for me, but I love them as people too, not just that care provider.
Wonderful, wonderful. And how do you believe that future generations will benefit from the work that you're doing today as a compassionate leader that you are? How do you want future generations to benefit from the work you're doing now?
Well, I think, the more that people realize that it's okay, like we were saying, to ask for help, to admit that, something's not going right, and to allow yourself to be vulnerable. I think that's a good thing. women have been knocked for years for doing things like that. No, that's part of our strength. And I think when we see men who are allowing that, it really shows that they are growing too. And so, yeah, we want people to know it's okay. It's okay to show people that, oh my gosh, you're human. But again, tell the people that you appreciate them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, one of the other things that I love when I bring on leaders onto this space is being able to talk to those, and you'll talk to us, and you have given us great insight this entire time. But I want you to talk to those who may be listening in the audience, that there is either a dream career or a dream business that they need to create, whether it's from a personal experience or just based upon an unction of something that they know that they need to create, especially in the entrepreneurial space. What tip, what encouragement or resource would you give to those who they know that there's something else they're supposed to be doing, but they just haven't turned it into a reality? What would you give to them to push them in the right direction?
Just do it. Yeah, that is a slogan, right? It's never going to be perfect. And so if you're waiting for whatever it is to be perfect, the perfect time, the perfect product, the perfect podcast, whatever it is, it's never going to be perfect. That's okay. And surround yourself with people who do support you. If if the people are oh no, you really shouldn't. Why are you, no. But you believe in yourself because the rest of the world believes in you more than you know it does.
Absolutely. Now, what about those who did just do it? They're out here in the world, they're already living the dream, they're doing the work, but they have run into a wall, or they've run into some frustration, or they might feel a little stuck. What would you give to them? What tip, what encouragement, what resource would you give to those who they're doing the work, but they feel a bit frustrated right now? What would you give to them?
Sit down and think about it. Why, what is the issue? Now, I'm not going to say it's a problem, because we think of those things as negatives, right? Maybe it's, you didn't have the right people, so get the right people. And maybe it wasn't time for it, whatever it is. But again, find people who are going to support you. I have, several very wonderful, powerful women, and now I'm counting you, who support us. And they're the people that we need to be around. It's okay to have setbacks. We all have those. Nothing is going to work right the very first time. And it's okay. But that doesn't mean you still shouldn't keep trying to do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, Deb, you have a complimentary gift for us on today. It's the results of a research study, which is the Executive Continuity During Cancer Study, a confidential research initiative for business leaders.
Right.
This is something that's really dynamic, very special. Tell us about what you're offering our listening audience today.
Well, if you are a leader and you're interested in this, we did do a study. We asked business leaders, a variety of questions about what they would do, and it was the findings were kind of surprising. We found that 71% of the respondents don't have a business continuity plan. And more than half of the people who responded have not experienced cancer themselves. So they haven't really thought, ooh, I need to be doing this. A good portion of them thought, I couldn't tell anybody. And so if you're interested in just kind of the results of the study, more than happy to provide that.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. So we're going to make sure that we get this into the bio, because I believe the way that you want us to access this special opportunity is to email you, and to use the particular subject line. And I
don't put it on a list or anything like that.
Absolutely. So we're going to make sure that we get this into the bio for our listeners. Well, Deb, I tell you, it has been such an honor to be in your presence today.
Oh, the honor's mine.
Absolutely. And I really enjoyed the conversation and your transparency and your willingness just to share your experience. Thank you for trusting us with your life's experience. But I also want to honor you for being such a champion to help leaders, as you mentioned, to establish that continuity, to learn how to delegate, to learn how to empower. So just thank you for doing just that work. So take us home. What are your final words that you would like to leave us with that's going to carry us from today and beyond? What are your final words?
Well, again, Teresa, thank you. This has been such a delightful conversation. And if we helped one person, then this is great. My final words are: you are in charge. You get to make the decisions, and you are in charge.
I love that. You are in charge. You get to make the decisions. I hope you heard that, listening audience. Thank you so much, Deb. It was such an honor to have you on today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to say thank you for joining us. Remember that you can connect with Deb and her complimentary gift by visiting her website at www.tryingnottodie.LIVE, as well as www.YourCancerWarrior.com. And also remember that you can connect with Deb by emailing her at deb@debkrier.com. Also connect with her on social media via LinkedIn at Deb Krier, as well as on Facebook at deb.krier. And be sure to take special advantage of her complimentary gift, which is the results of a research study, the Executive Continuity During Cancer Study, a confidential research initiative for business leaders. To access this, you may email Deb at deb@debkrier.com. Be sure to use executive study as the subject line. We're going to make sure that we get this information into the bio. Now, leaders, do you have an important story to tell that would inspire others to step into their dream career or business? If so, check the bio to learn how to become one of my special guests. So we want to say thank you for joining in for another episode of the Women's Leadership Mindset Series. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, here's to the journey, and let's move forward.